Urban Meyer is doing his Fox Sports thing, which is, I guess, good because he's not running an NFL team into the ground, and he is not dancing with other women at his nightclub. I guess that's better. That seems like an improvement. But saying stupid stuff is not really that great either. So here's what Urban Meyer had to say in a recent interview. He said, quote, I think Texas, you didn't mention them in this interview, but don't sleep on Texas this year. I was talking to Ohio State Associate Athletic Director Mark Pantoni, and I was talking to the recruiting director at Ohio State. Man for man, roster against roster, it's hard to say Texas doesn't have the best roster in college football. Let me repeat that last part. It's hard to say Texas doesn't have the best roster in college football. Let me give it a shot. Texas doesn't have the best roster in college football. How dumb of a statement is this on a scale of 1 to 10, Caleb Calhoun? Or do you agree?
No, I don't agree. It's at a 12. But more importantly, look, Urban Meyer, we know, is a sociopath. We also know that he's not a stupid sociopath like Butch Jones. Sorry for using that word.
Yes. A sociopath or stupid?
We know that Urban Meyer is not a stupid sociopath like Butch Jones. He's just a sociopath.
Okay, yes. A sociopath, somebody that only looks out for themselves, does not care about the interest of others.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And there's a lot of people, particularly in the coaching realm, who are sociopaths and also not smart. And it's not usually a good combination. And that's the Joneses of the world.
Actually, probably a good 40 to 50%. But that get to the head coaching level, there's a combination of. But anyway, Continue.
So Urban Meyer is a smart sociopath, which leads me to believe there is method to this madness. I'm just trying to figure out what the method is.
Okay, here's my I don't think there is. You're referring to an ulterior motive, right? I don't think there is that in this case. I think that it was just a passing conversation that he had with the recruiting director at Ohio State. I think it's a conversation he said where Texas is doing a good job, and they got Arch Manning, and Texas was number 3 in recruiting in this past recruiting cycle. So fine, that's fine. You heard that from your recruiting director. You want to say something, and also I'm sure that Fox Sports, which is why I'm not a Fox Sports guy, and I think ESPN will continue to dominate. We can have that conversation another time. I think Fox probably pushes him to say stuff and do these interviews, and I think he shoots from the hip. So I don't think this is a well thought out, premeditated thing like you would say before a game. Like Butch Jones, who you brought up, said the team in red, and he wouldn't refer to Alabama because he thought that would help his players in some shape, form, or fashion. It just made Alabama mad, and they beat the bejesus out of Tennessee. But there was an ulterior motive there. I don't believe there is in this case, Caleb. And I see what you're saying. Most oftentimes there would be. I just think it's an ignorant statement, because let me run these numbers by you. So Texas number 3 in the last recruiting cycle in 2023. And they may end up one day in the next 2 or 3 years having the most talented roster because there's so much oil money there, and they might take advantage of NIL. I would certainly think so. I don't think they're at the forefront of the top 10 teams taking advantage of NIL from what I'm told, but they're right there. But Alabama had the number 1 class in 2023. Georgia had the number 2 class. So Texas is not on Alabama and Georgia's level because Texas had the number 5 class in 2022. Now, I'm referring to classes most recently and classes that will affect the upcoming season. Alabama, number 3 in 2022. That's higher. Georgia in 2023 was number 2. So I'm going to run down one more year. 2021, those are the guys that are expected to contribute. Texas was number 15. And in 2021, Alabama number 1, Georgia was number 4. And then in 2020, if you want to go back further, Texas was 8, Alabama number 2, Georgia number 1. There is no way that Texas has one of the most talented rosters in the nation. They have one of the most talented, but there's no way that they have the most talented roster. It's just not even close. Mr. Jones says shooting from the hip is far less accurate than using the sights. Wow, he's a shooter. I like that. All right, so you're absolutely right. I do think this was shooting from the hip and just plain ignorant and dumb.
No, okay. Look.
Give me a reason.
Oh, I got the reason.
Okay.
Urban Meyer wants to trigger a Steve Sarkisian firing.
Oh,
job.
Okay. I thought he was okay. All right, that's pretty good. Kudos to Caleb. You win the star on your paper award. That's pretty good. Okay, so I could see that. I thought he had just pretty much that he was resolved to the fact that he's not going to be a coach again. But yes. Okay, so he's raising the stakes on Steve Sarkisian so that he can get the Texas job.
I think Urban Meyer would have been highly interested in the USC job before they hired Lincoln Riley. I really do think he would have wanted that job. Urban Meyer is the ultimate cut and run coach when things get a little tough, and then find as good of job that's perfectly positioned to be great somewhere else.
Okay,
and
that's a big time kudos to Caleb, because I usually see angles pretty good, I think, and I didn't see that, so kudos to Caleb on that one.
By the way, in terms of roster, the best roster for the record, if it wasn't for quarterback, it would be. Or you want to do 4 downs, don't you?
Oh yeah, I want to get to that. First, I was going to give you a love.
Oh, sorry.
Very good job, Caleb. I did not see that one coming at all. I didn't see that. I thought he was just fine with not coaching anymore, that he's proven he's kind of adult, and he's got the TV gig. So good job on that one. I didn't even see that, way out of left field. So,
and he's snakish enough just to try to get another coach fired for himself. He's that type of a snake.
Oh, yeah. No question. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. That's just an obvious statement. City Heat and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com brings you 4 downs. Integrity matters. You may not need a whole new unit when it gets hot and yours has trouble. You may just need a part, may need some coolant. That's why City Heating and Air Conditioning will take care of you. They bring you 4 downs right now. Integrity matters to City Heating and Air Conditioning. It does not to Urban Meyer.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
I'm changing it up for my rundown because you kind of showed me the light a little bit. All right. We know Texas doesn't have the best roster. Would Urban Meyer, that was going to be first down. First down is, would Urban Meyer do a better job at Texas than Steve Sarkisian?
Yes, and I don't want to tease too much because we're going to talk about this in a segment coming up, but I've never been that much of a believer in Steve Sarkisian. So, yes, I think he would.
Yeah, I'm not either. Unless I'm a bartender and need to pay my bills. It's awful.
Make sure he's there. Open the bar at 9 a.m. for him.
Yeah, and the tips will be tremendous. 20% of a lot is pretty good. Okay, I actually think that Urban Meyer is pretty washed up, and I think once he got in that position, especially at his age, he would not do as well. I think Texas is in better hands. If they could just snap their fingers and change everything, Steve Sarkisian would be better. So I'm going to give credit to Steve Sarkisian. I think he's turned his life around. So there we go. So second down, who has the best roster in the nation?
So if quarterbacks weren't a factor, it would easily be Alabama. Easily. But they don't have a quarterback. And I think the recruiting, we haven't seen it yet. There were a lot of young guys last year, and we just saw Bryce Young and Will Anderson, but they're loaded with young talent based on the last. I mean, it's Alabama, but lot of that young talent should emerge. They just don't have a quarterback. When you factor
I think it's Georgia.
See, I wasn't going to go to either of these though. When you factor in quarterback, I think it's Ohio State.
I'm going to take Georgia and what they did last year with restacking, man. That feels just like what Alabama was doing for years.
But you told me yesterday that this is not the same Georgia restacking that's about to happen this year that happened last year. And they barely beat Ohio State last year.
Okay. And shouldn't have. So, yeah. Okay. I think that's debatable. But the top echelon is what? It's Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama.
It's those three.
There's nobody else in that group. There's a step down after that, right?
Yeah, there's a step down right after those three. Pretty significant. I think other teams could win the national title but yeah, it's those three. I think Ohio State has the best roster. They ain't winning the national title because they don't got that good of a coach.
Yep. Okay, I agree with that. Third down are the Vols in that second tier, which to me is probably along the lines of 8 or 10 teams.
Yes, I think they are now, which, by the way, Texas is in that tier too, I think. But yes, I think the Vols are because the Vols have utilized the transfer portal well. And also, let's give some credit, man. Jeremy Pruitt found some very underrated players when he was at Tennessee.
Yes, Jeremy Pruitt did. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are, if you want to take the Cooper Mays was a Jeremy Pruitt guy. I mean, there are a lot of guys that turned out to be physically talented. I just the long-term direction wasn't going to work out, obviously. So we have Tennessee in that second tier. So fourth down, I ask you this: will Urban Meyer ever coach again? Boy, I got you on that one.
No, and I will tell you why. I'm not saying there's not a school that would take him. There's not a school that Urban Meyer would want to go to that would take him.
Exactly. So it's the Jim Tressel thing. Like Jim Tressel was willing to take a step down and go to Youngstown State or Youngstown or what?
No, I think it was back to Youngstown State. But okay, because he coached there before, yeah. But
yeah. So he went there and he was willing to do that. Urban Meyer's ego is too big, so he wouldn't take a secondary job just because I love coaching. He loves Urban more than he loves coaching. So. Yes. Like if Texas called, he would take that in a heartbeat. Heck, if Florida called back, he'd take that in a heartbeat. He would take one of the top 10 to 15. I don't even know that he would take a top 10 to 15 job. I think that he would have to have a top 5 job and believe that he could compete for championships very, very quick. How old is he again? I
think he's pushing 60, but I don't think
he's like 58. If you can fact check that for me. He's not
58. No, yeah, you got it right.
Yeah, he's not going to. I mean, I don't think he would go. He certainly wouldn't go to Utah again. Ohio State was ready-made when he left Florida. Florida has so much talent. But listen, Texas has a lot of talent. The state of Florida has a lot of talent, and he knew he could win there. But the state and the roster wasn't horrible when he took over because of Ron Zook was a pretty good recruiter. But listen, if you went to Texas, you're going to be competing with A&M, who's going to have a new coach, which you would think would do better after Jimbo Fisher's finally gone. You are competing with the TCUs now that they've proven legit. You're competing with a lot of different schools. So I don't think that's a lock, stock, and barrel that you're going to be fantastic there. As a matter of fact, I think it's grown into a tougher job, especially with the SEC. So you walk in, when Texas walks into the SEC, they're already at best third best roster. I think that there are several coaches from a schematic standpoint, and I'm going to include Josh Heupel in this, that are better than Steve Sarkisian. I think that Lane Kiffin is a better coach schematically than Steve Sarkisian. I'm sure I'm leaving some.
Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly, yep, as a whole is a better coach than Urban Meyer. I believe.
You mean Steve Sarkisian?
Yes, than Sarkisian. Excuse me. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think this would be, but I think Brian Kelly as a whole is perhaps a better coach than Urban Meyer. I know that sounds crazy because of the championships, and it would be hard to make that argument. But Brian Kelly spent a lot of time at Notre Dame, where you just can't win a championship because of the academic restrictions, and then you have no control over discipline. Do you know you have to live in the dorms at Notre Dame? You have to live in the dorms. You can't go get your own apartment if you're a player.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
you know what? The more you say it, it's like I might be on your side. I mean, let's take even recruiting into account. Let's call a spade a spade. Who wants to live in northern Indiana? Like, guys, the upper Midwest right around there, it's miserable. Okay, it is. Respect for the people who live there. You know, I'm not saying they weren't. I'm not saying they have not been massively screwed by our government and big business in different ways, but these are rundown factory towns left and right, and it's dreary above you all the time. You don't want to live there, and you got the academic standards. Look, I've said this before. Notre Dame is not even like there are 30 schools I could think of right now that are better positioned to win a national title than Notre Dame.
yes, I agree with all of that, and I think that when you look at what Notre Dame is, it's pretty cool. I mean, I can roll with it. I like that it's a part of college football, but unless they make changes that they're never going to make, they're not going to compete for a championship anytime soon.
Oh yeah, and they're losing their TV revenue advantage, by the way, with the Big Ten getting on NBC. Like one of the big financial advantages Notre Dame has to recruit national, that's going out the window. I mean, guys, because of how set they are in their ways, we're seeing Notre Dame be a program that can win right now. I mean, you might see Notre Dame like in 50 years, we might be talking about them the way we talk about Pittsburgh now, because Pittsburgh and Georgia Tech were like the class of the 1920s in college football. And
yeah,
that
I would actually say more like Georgia Tech because the academics.
Yes, exactly.
And I don't know. Could they slip to the Vanderbilt area? Well, I tell you, I got a better comparison. Northwestern. They could be Northwestern, where a 9-win season is cause for a parade.
Yes, it will be. And then you'll see these old guys be like, well, back in 1980, Notre Dame was amazing. And it's like, nope. That's where they're going to be. You're right. I mean, Vanderbilt's a dangerous one. That is a really good one, because I'm sure up until the 1980s, there were World War I veterans telling you how great Vanderbilt football should be because of the history.